The sun has swung around, so I got a little bit of shade. It's cold or whatever it is, and the sun blazing off the phone, real irritating the eyes. So, would you look a few more shares before I get out of here? Quick mention, I don't remember if I mentioned it earlier or not. I mentioned I passed a few different offers for TV, which, yeah, that'll never happen in this lifetime, trust me. But a good friend of mine, name most of you are familiar with, told me flat out that well-known TV network channel got a hold of him and asked him if he wanted to get involved in doing a TV show. He said they were totally polite, professional. I might have mentioned this before, but he also said that they specifically told him flat out that the delivery would be, as you're delivering to the video camera, the TV camera, you would be speaking as though you're speaking to a grade 4 class. All right? And guess who the grade 4 class is, who they're referring to? It's all of you. And that's a fact. And how sad is that? Right? And that's your mainstream source. Being delivered to the society today is speaking to adults as though they were a bunch of grade 4 students. Meanwhile, the most intelligent people in our society, the scientists, are scared for their lives. And we only get to speak publicly as long as we keep it to a grade 4 narrative. How pathetic is that, right? Yeah, I just want to go out of my way to become a reality TV star. Amazing, isn't it? Isn't it insulting? Isn't it amazing? Hopefully we'll turn it around. We're working at it bit by bit, right? We'll turn it around. Hello, Steve. My name is Zach Warren, or known on the Appalachian Trail as Zeke. I ended up turning to long-distance hiking when all my punk rock friends were going to go to jail and doing drugs. I realized the path wasn't for me. Well, good for you, man. I found the AT and never looked back. I ended up doing what is called work for stay at Greasy Creek Hostel. The closest town is Irwin, Tennessee, just about 20 to 30 miles south of the hostel. So one day I headed out down the AT south towards Irwin. I never thought I'd see what I saw on that hike. I ended up turning a corner, and about 10 feet in front of me I saw a being around 8 to 9 feet tall and about 4 to 5 feet wide at the shoulders. This thing was buff. When I walked up on it, I stopped dead in my tracks, frozen. Not from fear, but like, what the F is that? He was facing away from me, so I never saw his face, but it was looking down at something in its right hand. Its left hand was so long, it reached to its knees. I could see the lines in its palm and fingers. It had reddish-brown hair with gray around the neck and wrists. I think it realized I was there, and it lifted its head from looking down at its hand and froze, like, oh shit, there's a person behind me. All of a sudden, it just ran away. And never looking back, just bolted away. And damn, was it fast. This experience only lasted a few seconds. When it ran away, I saw its muscles move. It had a giant V-like backstrap that I could clearly see flex and move as it ran. No way that thing was a man in a suit. This area doesn't really have any hikers this time of year because the northbounders are close to New York by this time of year, and the southbounders won't be there until November-ish. I think they're used to, this time of year, to be able to roam free-ish. Plus, the gray hair made me think it was old and probably didn't hear me walk up on it. I never told anyone on the trail, and those I've told close to me just laugh. I've heard several stories of this area on your channel. One Roan Mountain was my backyard, and the locals even put signs in the woods saying Bigfoot Sanctuary. That area is hot because I also heard a roar in that area that was so loud and sounded like a man and a lion mixed. Woke me up out of a dead sleep and scared the hell out of me. Thank you for starting this channel. Feels good to tell my story and not get laughed at. Take care, Steve, and thank you for all you do. I'm really looking into guide work. It sounds like my true calling. Who knows? Maybe I'll see you one day. All right, Zeke, appreciate the share, man. Keep your eyes peeled. That was obviously one hell of a rare encounter you had. Not too many people get to walk up on one that close and get a look at that kind of detail. Steve, I used to think at first, what the hell are we doing taking fireside stories this far and this seriously while the schmucks on these half-assed TV shows out to make a buck, show us that for them it's all smoke and mirrors and no substance. So, I got fed up with the subject. Yet, there are things that just cannot be explained away. My first wife took great pains to teach her little blue-eyed, blonde-haired daughter well about the world around her. And like any other parents, we prided ourselves in her development. So what was this giant hairy man she described to her mother as she knelt before her daughter as they picked wild flowers together out in the remote piney woods near Fishville, Louisiana? My wife was looking at our daughter just as a toddler at the time, but very engaged in the world around her and very curious to learn. As my wife filled a basket with flowers, her little girl gazed at something behind her mother, something that made her ask her mother, "Mommy, what's that giant hairy man doing in this field?" As she put it in her own words, a man covered in hair. That was all it took for her mother to grab her little girl and take off in a dead run to the car without even looking back to see what her little daughter was talking about. She quickly hopped in her little station wagon and drove out of there, pedal to the metal. It was only once she got back to the place we were sharing with the in-laws during that cold Thanksgiving holiday that her mother began questioning her daughter in a way that would only not frighten her. We were all having a few drinks as I cooked the dinner, and we listened intently without trying to make too much of a big deal over it. We all thought that perhaps she had seen something that she misinterpreted, maybe just out of denial more than out of completely trying to wrap our heads around the subject. I mean, like, this was just supposed to be an entertainment angle of movies like The Legend of Boggy Creek, right? Well, a lot of very strange shit happens in the north central Louisiana, such as my brother-in-law getting a very strange buzzing in his ears while hunting, and while standing on a stump trying to shoot dinner, sees an object hovering over the ground about as big as a car while a fighter jet flies in circles overhead, probably deployed out of England Air Base. How about some of the family out in the swamps frog gigging, and on the way back to the truck seeing what they thought were headlights on the shoulder of the road above them, just flashing by only to get to the top of the hill and see no road and no cars. Getting back to my daughter's sighting, it did not stop that afternoon. After we all had dinner and drinks, we all went to bed. Our little girl got up to go to the bathroom that night, and we left the bathroom light in the... Our little girl got up to go to the bathroom that night, and we left the light on in the bathroom. She ran back to bed and tried to wake up her mom, but could not because Mommy was really worn out. But what she told us in the morning made us wonder, claiming the same big hairy man was looking in the house through the bathroom window, but my daughter did not seem to be frightened. Instead, she said it was trying to get her to open the window. That's not good. There are stories about children seeing Bigfoot looking through the windows at night, and some people theorize that this could be a female who is grieving over losing a child and wants to adopt a human child as a substitute. I think this is plausible. It seems mother and her little girl were followed home as the field they were at was not far from where we were staying. Keep doing what you're doing, and feel free to mention this in my name, Mike from Texas. Wow. Thanks for that share, Mike, especially the part about the thing trying to motion for the child to open up the window. It's probably something everybody should share with their kids if you're living rurally and you're having shit go on your property. Make sure they don't open up the window, right? Just keep being honest with your children and family and tell everybody the truth, what's going on out there. Okay? My name is David. Oh, let me mark that as red. My name is David. I'm a Navy vet. I had a machine pistol pressed against my head in Naples, Italy in 1978. And in 1980, I almost fell overboard and to pull myself back on board. Those two events weren't scary, but don't come close to this. 2014, June 12th, Game 3 of the NBA Championship, Heat and Spurs. I lived at 8731 Frontenac Road, Indianapolis, Indiana. At the end of the game, I went to the front door and lit a cigarette, turned off the porch light, and stepped out onto the porch, looking to my right. Nothing happening in my neighbor's yard. Stepped off the porch, turned left, took 4 steps to the driveway. Hitting my cigarette, I looked to my neighbor's driveway, and standing in the back of a minivan, was a 5'8", 180-pound, silvery gray hair, about 4 inches long in the arms and legs. It was 2 inches long in the midsection. It was standing with its arms up over its head, hair moving in the wind. When I first saw it, the mouth was open like, oh shit, and then closed. It's standing there, legs shoulder width, facing me about 20 feet away. I want to run, but I can't move. Fear went to a whole new level. Hair standing at the back of my neck. I feel like I'm prey. I'm trying not to look in the eyes. I'm looking at the whole thing. Hair on top of its feet, calves, and thighs is about 4 inches long. The midsection is about 2 inches long. It wasn't matted. It looked groomed. No plant matter in it. The face had long hair around the chin and jawline. Peach fuzz around the cheeks, silvery gray like a possum. I can't smell it or hear it. All I want to do is run, but I still can't move. It feels like forever, but I think it was about 5 minutes. I feel fear building to a new level. Something's behind me, and it's more than one now. I can move. I run to the front door, and I slam it shut, lock it. I go upstairs, get a gun and a sword. I looked out the windows all night, but would not go outside. I called the police 3 days later, and they thought it was funny, but they sent a game warden to talk to me. I think it was hunting for an easy meal, pets, chickens, or people. It was not an ape or a monkey. It was a man-shaped predator. Wow, David, that's quite the frickin' description. A little bit of punctuation missing. I hope I read it smoother than not. Thanks for that share, man. You know you're not alone. Fuck, it's just endless, right? It's just endless, endless, endless. Okay, Steve, Rusty here. Okay, Rusty, I think you've emailed us before. Amazing discoveries are all around us. Forest people, for instance. Here's a creature that has remained hidden from the eyes of most right outside our windows. Searching for them is almost impossible because they can feel your intentions. I've seen them on many occasions, mostly hiking. We know very little about who or what they are. We know the habitat they live in. They thrive with our absence, yet study our every move when they're in the woods, when we're in the woods. Contact with them is next to impossible, simply because we're seen as destructive and intrusive. If you're lucky enough to share a location with them, you and your house on their land, and make connection, it's only because they allow it. Government and their media want us to believe we're crazy, you're a liar, or you saw a bear. Bullshit. They, the media, lose control when we think for ourselves. My mama taught me that the sky is blue. The media is telling us, no, you're lied to, it's a greenish blue. Point is, millions of people see unbelievable things each and every day. I've had contact with the forest people for 6 years now, a family of 5 in fact. The male is over 9 feet and I'd say close to 800 pounds. Certain times a year he is very loud, growling and breaking things in late fall. The First Nations elder told me that's musk time they breed. Naturally they chase and attack trespassing people and creatures. The older female will follow us while we hike. Sometimes she will sit nearby, allowing us to see a part of her as she watches. We don't feel threatened, just studied. Final point, Steve, this kind of worms you've opened was essential. Your no bullshit approach is exactly what we all need to do. Good people of the earth, think and see for yourself. If you see the truth, bitch slap anyone that tells you different. And for God's sake, treat each other with respect. Hope this opens eyes. Keep rocking the channel, Steve. Morning coffee just isn't the same without your videos. Rusty. Thanks, Rusty. Thanks for this share, man. The truth's getting out there. It's just a matter of everybody climbing on board and accepting it and speaking of it as though it's factual and getting up to some answers. Not only do we have the hairy folks living on the mountain behind our place, but one day I was sitting on my porch just enjoying the birds singing when I noticed our neighbor's goat had made its way to our pasture. I was just eating as fast as it could, but every few minutes its head would jerk up and it would stare down toward the mountain on the east side of my porch. I watched it do it for a bit and then decided to find out what it was drawing the goat's attention. And when it was obvious it was enjoying the green grass immensely, I walked to the end of the porch and there stood a critter. I've never seen anything like it before. It was about the size of a grown deer, on 4 legs, longish tail, dog-looking head, large straight ears, standing up. I've gone through everything I can find, but I've not found it in any photos. What is even more strange is the way it left. Let me explain. I was afraid it would take off after the goat, so I clapped my hands. It looked at me, and then it went back to staring at the goat. So I clapped my hands and yelled at it. It looked at me, back to the goat, then turned and slowly trotted off toward the mountain. Now, it got to the top of the rise that it would have had to go down for a short way before it would start up the mountain. Or it could go turn right and go down the path behind the pond. It did neither one. It just slowly trotted and disappeared into thin air. Just zip. He/she/it was gone. And it was a light reddish brown with a lighter color under the neck and belly. Wouldn't it be nice if our stupid evil government would fill us in on what's really going on our planet? Well, that was a different one. And you know what I would suggest is to you and many other people listening right now is quit thinking that you need the government to assure you or fill you in with anything. The government is definitely not, has nothing to do. The government is not going to do anything when it comes to educating us or sharing the absolute knowledge with us. It's not going to do it. All right? Guess you got to accept that. I think that's why this channel is taking off, is because we are given the power of speech back to the people, word for word. Everybody's treated equally. Nothing's withheld. And we've essentially kicked the government to the curb on this channel, right? Who needs, I mean, yeah, I could go off about the government for a long time. I guess I'll cut that one short, and I will just suggest to all of you that true absolute knowledge is going to come from the people, not the government. That is a fact. You can prove it to yourself quite easily. Just maintain the course, keep sharing with each other, speaking openly, and don't think for 1 second you need anything from the government, because we don't. They don't have our better interests in hand. Okay? Keep sharing with the people. The people, share knowledge with the people, by the people. That's the strongest thing on the face of the planet today. Hey Steve, I'm an avid viewer of your channel. I want to thank you for the platform you created for experience of these beings to share their stories. It's taken me several days to put this email together, as it has brought back a lot of upsetting memories that I've tried to suppress over the years. I'm a down-to-earth and honest person. I have no need to lie or make up stories. That being said, I have an experience that I'd like to share with you. I've held on to this for around 33 years. With the exception of my granddad, I've never told another soul. I grew up in a small village in the countryside of northwest of England. My mother and father split when I was around 3 years old. I stayed with my mom, but she was largely absent from my youth, and I was basically raised by my granddad, whom I lived with until he passed away. Growing up, I had two best friends. The world was a safer place back then, and on weekends and during holidays, my two friends and I would play outside in the woods from early morning until after sunset. It was during the school summer holidays of '87 that this incident took place, and I was 8 years old at the time. What I'm about to tell you is unbelievable and makes no sense to me even now, but I think time has come to share it. On the morning this happened, I went round to call for my two friends to see if they wanted to come out and play. There's an area of woodland at the top of the village where a huge old oak tree had been struck by lightning and partially fallen down. My friends and I had claimed this area as our own little playground, as the half of the tree that had fallen was really good for climbing and making tree houses and dens, and we had christened it the base, due to it being the place where we started the majority of our childhood adventures from. It turned out that one of my friends wasn't feeling well, and so wasn't allowed out to play, and the other had gone shopping with his mom, so that day I headed out to the base alone. To get to the fallen tree, I had to walk through a large field, which is periodically maintained, but at the time, the grass hadn't been cut and was around 3 feet high. The fallen tree was part of a larger copse of trees along the bottom edge of this field, and the lighter wood where the tree had split apart was visible through the overhanging branches of the surrounding trees from about halfway across the field. As I got to the middle of the field, I looked towards the base to see if I could see any other kids there, and realized that I couldn't see the lighter wood of the fallen tree. In its place, all I could see was brown. My 8-year-old mind couldn't process this, and the best I'd come up with was that the tree had somehow grown its bark back since I was there last, and just a few days before. I was intrigued and took a few steps toward when an overwhelming sense of fear came over me and stopped me in my tracks. At this point, I couldn't see anything, but somehow I knew that something was very wrong and that something was near to the base. I stared towards the base. I realized that there was something brown obscuring my view of the fallen tree and that it had started to move. The thing that was standing there had its back to me, and the second I realized this, it slowly turned to face me, and it was at that point that I knew I was in trouble. I realized that the brown I could see was hair, not fur, but hair, about 4 inches long, and it was exactly the same color as the tree bark. I couldn't tell if the hair was different colors or uniformly brown with dead leaves and branches and such in it, but from the distance, it would have been invisible to anyone looking. I couldn't move. My limbs felt like lead, and I could feel my heart beating in my ears. Every fiber of my being was telling me to run, but I was so scared I was rooted to the spot. The thing squatted down, similar to how a sumo wrestler does before a fight. I couldn't see its head or face as it was obscured by the overhanging branches, but I got a clear view of its chest, stomach, and arms. The hair on its chest and stomach was slightly shorter than the hair on its back and arms, and a bit lighter in color. It was huge, easily 4 feet across his shoulders and at least 8 feet tall in its squatting position. Keep in mind that at 8 years old, I never seen or heard of anything like this before in my life. To me, this thing was a monster, plain and simple. Its shoulders and biceps were absolutely massive, and my only point of reference was that this thing was like the Incredible Hulk, but with hair. I was about 30 feet or so from it, and I was so scared that I didn't realize that I started to cry. If this thing wasn't unbelievable enough, it brought its hands together in front of its chest, making a circle shape with its thumbs and fingers. In the middle of the circle appeared to be a ball of pure white light, which I now know to be an orb, but at that time I likened it to a floating crystal ball. This being stood up and dropped its arms down, and so did I. This being stood up and dropped its arms down. As it did so, its hands were close to being level with its knees, and the orb stayed in the same position where it appeared and rose with the creature when it stood. There was no sound as this happened, no birds singing, no grasshoppers chirping, and even though I could feel the breeze and see the grass and the leaves on the branches moving, there was just deafening silence. I don't know how long this all took, but I realized I'd been holding my breath as all this happened. I exhaled hard, and as I did so, a crystal clear thought flashed through my mind. If you don't run now, you will never see home again. I don't know how to explain this thought came from, but I know for a fact it wasn't mine. At this moment, I felt a familiar nuzzling in my armpit and realized that Hobo, my granddad's Irish wolfhound, was behind me. I don't know how he got out and didn't realize he had followed me, but he put his head beside my left shoulder and began growling and snarling, and this somehow snapped me out of the trance I was in. I turned and sprinted as fast as I could back to the field and didn't look back. I didn't know when I pissed myself, but I realized that I had when I was halfway home. I was crying so hard that I could barely breathe. Hobo ran beside me all the way home. When I got back home, it took my granddad about an hour or so to calm me down and explain to him what happened. He responded by giving me the worst beating he had ever given me in my life and sending me to my room. He then left the house telling me not to move and didn't return for a half an hour. When he did return, he came into my room and sat on my bed. He hugged me and comforted me, and I began to cry. I was scared and confused. He told me that I had seen the woodwoss, pronounced woodwoss, and that I had to stay indoors for the rest of the summer, and I was forbidden from ever playing at the base again. Needless to say, I never went back there. Before this happened, I was a happy and outgoing kid, but this experience made me withdrawn and timid. I asked my granddad what the woodwoss was, and he told me that it was a tall, hairy man who guards the woods. He said that he scares grown-ups away and sometimes takes kids to a place in the woods where they are never seen again. At that time, I had no reason to doubt my granddad. He had raised me and was the only father figure I had when growing up. I think he beat me because he was scared and angry at what had happened to me and took these feelings out on me. I don't blame him for it and will never think any less of him for it. I didn't even hear the term Bigfoot until years later at school when I found a book on unexplained mysteries and cryptids. I have since learned that stories of the woodwoss go back to the 15th century and is also referred to as the hairy man, the wild man of the woods, the faun, and sometimes the green man. I do not know if it is a Bigfoot Sasquatch type being or if it is even related to those entities, but I know for a fact that there are things on this planet and in the woods and dark places that are beyond most people's understanding. I believe that my granddad also had some kind of encounter with one of those beings, although he never admitted it until the day he died. Anyway, this is my experience. It's okay if you choose not to share this, and if you don't believe me, well, that's okay as well. I mean, who would believe a story like that? After my granddad passed away, I had to grow up fast, and once I took control of my life, I stopped being scared and started looking for answers. I've researched all the folklore I can. I've researched all the folklore I can find. And over the years, I've been in every forest of every mountain on every moor in England, Scotland, and Wales. I've never seen or experienced anything like that since that morning all those years ago. I decided to share this with you because I admire what you're doing. The more people that know about these things, the better. Today I'm 41 years old and still researching and looking for answers. I still believe that if it wasn't for my granddad's dog, that that thing would have taken me. I'm a father of 2 children and talk openly with them about this topic, although I've never told either of them about the experience I had when I was a kid. I still live in Cheshire countryside in northwest of England, and the woods around where I live are now the playground of my kids and their friends. I don't want them to be scared of the woods, but I do encourage them to be sensible. They never go anywhere alone, and I always take one of my working lurchers with them when they venture into the woods. Thank you for the platform. Keep doing what you're doing and keep safe out there. Best wishes to you, your loved ones, and all those people searching for answers. Sincerely, Paul. Wow, Paul. Here's an experience. And you're not the only person who have emailed in reporting that bright light at the chest of one of those things. If you guys remember, we had somebody email from Prince George, and they were traveling on the highway, I believe, west of Prince George, and they seen one of those things ripping along the side of the highway up on the bank with a few weird-looking odd bright lights in front of his chest. And that's not the only one. It's not the only case. There's literally dozens and dozens of people are seeing the same thing, and these people are unrelated, don't know each other, and it's going on around the planet. The only thing you can do is speak openly about it, honestly about it, with your fellow man, with your community, be honest with your kids, and just speak honestly. Speak openly and honestly. Let's face it, that's the fastest way to learn, is it not? Well, but anyway, anybody's interested and curious, if you Google up and go on Google Earth or whatever and Google in the Wendy Thompson hut, and that is straight as the crow flies that way, just a couple miles, and that is where some people who are with Whistler Search and Rescue found some 17-inch footprints with a 5-foot stride sinking 3 times in the snow deeper than their prints and heading downhill towards Pemberton. That happened a handful of years ago, and I knew one of them, and she emailed me and told me about it. Interesting little fact where I'm standing. Now it's time to get my butt out of here, and I will be back with more shares. And again, to all you scientists out there around the globe that are watching this channel, I know you are, be sure to email me what you can of what you've witnessed. Okay? Use an alias, use a proton email, use whatever you got, and just email me your experiences and I'll share them with the people, all right? And be safe out there.